Summary of the Royal Game, a novel written by Keir. Chapter 1. The Mediterranean sun hung low over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the bustling streets of Mallorca. Jenny Jensen, a young singer-songwriter from suburban Peoria, stood barefoot on stage, her acoustic guitar cradled in her arms. It was day 3 of her solo acoustic tour, and as she scanned the half-filled club, doubts gnawed at her mind like persistent waves against a rocky shore. The tour had been pitched to her by her manager as an opportunity to expand her fan base and break into new markets. Yet, as she strummed her guitar and sang her heart out to the intimate crowd, she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that perhaps she was chasing after shadows, pursuing elusive dreams conjured by someone else's promises. But Jenny was no stranger to doubt. She had learned to dance with uncertainty, to let the rhythm of her music guide her through the murky waters of the music industry. And so, with a determined flick of her fingers, she plunged into her set, pouring her soul into each lyric and melody. The audience, though not massive, listened attentively, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of the stage lights. Some knew her songs, others were hearing them for the first time, but all seemed captivated by the raw emotion in her voice and the honesty in her lyrics. As she sang, memories flooded back to her, memories of late nights spent writing songs in her bedroom, of long drives to gigs in rundown bars and smoky clubs, of the moment she first heard her music played on the radio. It had been 4 years since her song "I Can't Even" had been featured in an indie rom-com, propelling her into the spotlight and changing her life forever. Since then, the road had been a winding one, filled with highs and lows, triumphs and setbacks. She had toured the world, played to sold-out crowds, and tasted the sweetness of success. But she had also experienced the sting of rejection, the crushing weight of expectation, and the gnawing fear of obscurity. And now, here she was, halfway across the world, questioning the choices that had led her to this moment. Was she chasing after fame and fortune, or was she simply following the call of her heart? Was this tour a stepping stone to greater things, or a futile attempt to recapture past glories? As she strummed her guitar and sang her songs, Jenny couldn't help but wonder what lay beyond the horizon. Was there another path she should have taken, another dream she should have pursued? Or was this, perhaps, exactly where she was meant to be, on stage, under the spotlight, sharing her music with the world? The questions lingered in her mind like echoes in an empty room, haunting her with their insistent refrain. But as she reached the final chords of her set, a sense of peace washed over her like a gentle tide. For in that moment, she realized that it didn't matter where the road led or what lay beyond the horizon. All that mattered was the music, the timeless melody that bound her to her audience, the universal language that spoke to the hearts of all who listened. And as she took her final bow and stepped off stage, she knew that no matter where her journey took her next, she would always be guided by the rhythm of her heart and the melody of her soul. Outside the club, the warm Mediterranean breeze brushed against her skin, carrying with it the scent of salt and sea. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes and letting the sounds of the night wash over her, the laughter of passers-by, the distant hum of traffic, the soft murmur of waves against the shore. And then, as if on cue, fate intervened in the form of 4 square-shouldered men who entered the room and took their seats near the exits. Jenny watched with curiosity as the nightclub owner ushered them to their front row seats, a sense of anticipation building in the air like electricity before a storm. The men were well-dressed, their demeanor confident and composed. They exuded an air of mystery, their presence commanding attention without uttering a word. And as Jenny continued to play, she couldn't shake the feeling that their arrival was more than mere coincidence, that perhaps they held the key to the answers she sought. But Jenny was a professional, and she played on, her fingers dancing across the strings of her guitar with practiced precision. She sang her songs with passion and conviction, her voice ringing out like a clarion call in the night. Yet, even as she performed, her mind raced with questions. Who were these men, and what did they want? Were they fans drawn by her music, or something else entirely? And what did their presence mean for her and her uncertain journey? As she reached the final notes of her set, disaster struck in the form of a broken string. Jenny's heart sank as she felt the familiar twang beneath her fingers, the sound echoing like a lament in the silent room. But she was a seasoned performer, and she knew how to roll with the punches. With a quick apology to the audience, she set about changing the string on stage, her hands moving deftly as she worked to repair the damage. As she worked, she couldn't help but feel a sense of unease creeping over her. The men in the front row watched her intently, their eyes unreadable behind the polished veneer of their sunglasses. And as she finished restringing her guitar, she couldn't shake the feeling that their presence was more than mere coincidence, that perhaps they held the key to the answers she sought. But Jenny was a professional, and she played on, her fingers moving with practiced precision as she strummed her guitar and sang her songs. She poured her heart and soul into each note, her voice ringing out like a beacon in the night. And then, as she reached the final chords of her set, fate intervened once more in the form of a well-dressed man who approached her with a request. He introduced himself as Nigel Courtney and explained that his friend, whom he referred to as Hunks, wanted to meet her. Intrigued, Jenny agreed to accompany Nigel, her curiosity piqued by the mystery of it all. As they rode through the winding coastal roads in a chauffeured Mercedes, she couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. Was this encounter mere happenstance, or was there something more to it, something hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed? When they arrived at a grand villa overlooking the sea, Jenny's breath caught in her throat at the sight of its opulent splendor. She followed Nigel through the ornate halls and out onto a flagstone patio, where a table set for two awaited them. And there, amidst the flickering candlelight and the soft rustle of palm fronds, she met him, the man they called Hunks, and felt a spark of recognition deep within her soul. For in that moment, as their eyes met across the table, she knew that their meeting was no mere coincidence, that it was, perhaps, the beginning of a journey that would take her beyond the bounds of her wildest dreams. As they sat and talked, Jenny found herself drawn to him in ways she couldn't explain. He spoke with a warmth and sincerity that touched her heart, his words resonating with a truth that spoke to her soul. And as they shared stories and laughter beneath the stars, she felt a sense of connection that transcended time and space. And then, as the night wore on and the stars began to fade, he asked her to sing for him, to share her music with him in a way she had never shared it before. And so, with a trembling voice and a heart full of hope, she sang. She sang of love and loss, of dreams and desires, of the beauty and the pain of being human. She sang until her voice grew hoarse and her fingers grew weary, until the first light of dawn kissed the horizon and the world seemed to hold its breath in awe. And as the final notes of her song faded into the stillness of the morning, she knew that something had changed, that she had found in him a kindred spirit, a fellow traveler on the winding road of life. For in that moment, as they sat together beneath the fading stars, she realized that her journey was far from over, that it was just beginning, with him by her side. And as they watched the sun rise over the Mediterranean Sea, casting its golden rays upon the world below, she knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, two souls bound by the timeless melody of destiny. Chapter 2. Jenny's heart raced as the helicopter banked away from the Thames, leaving London's bustling cityscape behind. This was her first time in a helicopter, and to her astonishment, it was a royal one. She sat alone in the opulent cabin, the soft leather seat cradling her as the RAF captain piloting the aircraft pointed out landmarks with the enthusiasm of a seasoned tour guide. But Jenny's mind wasn't on the sights below, it was consumed by thoughts of Hugh. It had been nearly a month since she last saw him, and her longing to be reunited with him grew with each passing moment. Their relationship, a closely guarded secret, had faced its share of challenges since its inception. From the moment they met, Jenny and Hugh knew that their love story would be anything but ordinary. Heir to the British throne, Hugh lived a life of privilege and scrutiny, while Jenny, an American singer, was accustomed to a quieter existence. Their worlds collided in a chance encounter that sparked a forbidden romance, one that had to be hidden from the prying eyes of the media and the ever-watchful gaze of the public. Their love blossomed in the shadows, nurtured by stolen moments and whispered promises. From clandestine rendezvous in far-flung locations to covert meetings under the cover of darkness, Jenny and Hugh treasured every second they spent together, knowing that their love was a delicate flower that could easily be trampled by the weight of expectation and tradition. But despite the challenges they faced, Jenny and Hugh remained steadfast in their devotion to each other. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, fueled by the knowledge that they were each other's refuge in a world that sought to tear them apart. As the helicopter descended towards Kensington Palace, Jenny's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment she had been waiting for. Stepping out of the aircraft, she was greeted by a man in a suit who ushered her into a waiting car. As they drove through the palace grounds, Jenny's excitement mounted with each passing moment. Finally, they arrived at Knockcott, the charming cottage where Hugh resided. Stepping out of the car, Jenny's heart swelled with anticipation as she caught sight of Hugh waiting for her on the front step. Dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, he looked every bit the Prince Charming she had fallen in love with. As they embraced, Jenny felt a wave of relief wash over her. Despite the chaos surrounding their relationship, being in Hugh's arms felt like coming home. Inside the cottage, they shared a simple meal of pizza and tea, savoring the comfort of each other's company. As they talked, Jenny couldn't help but marvel at the depth of Hugh's love for her. Despite the weight of his responsibilities and the scrutiny of the public eye, he had chosen her above all else. It was a love that transcended barriers and defied expectations, a love that Jenny cherished with every fiber of her being. After dinner, Hugh took Jenny on a tour of the palace, showing her the renovations he had planned. As they walked through the grand halls, Jenny couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all. But it was when they reached his mother's favorite sitting room that Hugh's vulnerability shone through. He shared memories of his mother, Princess Penelope, painting a picture of a woman who was far more than the tabloids made her out to be. Moved by his openness, Jenny felt a surge of love for him. Despite the trappings of royalty, Hugh was just a man trying to find his place in the world. As they walked hand in hand through the garden, Hugh dropped to one knee and produced a ring box. Jenny's heart pounded in her chest as he spoke of his love for her and his desire to spend the rest of his life with her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Jenny said yes, accepting the ring with tears in her eyes. In that moment, surrounded by the beauty of the palace garden, they made a promise to each other that nothing could break. As they embraced, Jenny knew that their love was worth fighting for, no matter the obstacles they faced. As the sun began to set on Kensington Palace, casting a golden glow over the grounds, Jenny and Hugh stood together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future held. For in each other's arms, they had found a love that was stronger than any storm, a love that would endure for eternity.